In your view, Sir Keir, was the journalist and author Isabel Oakeshott right to leak Mr Hancock's WhatsApp messages?
Oh, who to choose? Matt Hancock or Isabel Oakeshott? Look, I think it's very hard for her to justify all of what has come out as in the public interest. But on the other hand, it is incredibly illuminating. I have to say, the idea of Matt Hancock taking his phone out with 3 years' worth of WhatsApps, hundreds of thousands of WhatsApp, and handing it to a journalist and effectively saying, well, use the good bits in my book, but don't look at anything else. I mean, how naive can you be? But, as between...
What did you learn about I assume you read it or read a précis. A précis was prepared for you.
I've read a lot of it. I mean,
you've read it all the time.
Yeah.
What have you taken from it?
The chaotic way in which they were running the government. You'd expect some of these decisions to be in proper meetings, thrashed out, proper decisions recorded, and there's stuff pinging around on WhatsApp. The the self-aggrandisement of Matt Hancock. It's all about him. And some of the decisions that were taken appear to be taken on the basis of sort of quite minor political issues rather than the major issues of the day.
Would you publish?
I think most people would be really, would look at this and think this was a pretty chaotic way to run the country.
Would you publish your WhatsApp messages through the pandemic?
No, I wouldn't.
Would you give me your mobile phone and help you write a book?
Nick, have a look. I don't know what Matt Hancock was thinking in handing all that over, but all he's done is shown a torch on himself and others. I imagine that others that were working with him will be pretty angry with him that everything they've ever said to him is now put by him effectively into the public domain. I had absolutely no contact with Sue Gray during the preparation of her report, when she was writing it or anything like that. So the whole suggestion is a complete and utter nonsense, and not for the first time from Boris Johnson. I thought your words were very, very good. I'm not sure I'd get away with all of them, Sarah, but it's a complete nonsense. I think his own party, if you look, it's a dwindling group of people around him that are still supporting him, but the vast majority of sensible Conservatives.
To the line that possibly some Johnson supporters would say, it was all a put-up job. I know you don't believe that, but you don't give the idea that it would give credence to that.
It's a complete nonsense. I had no contact at all with Sue during that entire period, as you'd expect.
You will remember in January 2022 last year, you said to me the following words: full disclosure, I know Sue Gray personally. When did you first approach Sue Gray to be your Chief of Staff?
Nick, I know her personally. I met her when I was Director of Public Prosecution. She was obviously a senior civil servant. I met a number of them. I was really, really impressed with her. So I've known her personally since then. She's not a friend. I don't mix with her. I'm not in the same social circles or anything like that. I know her personally in the sense that if I saw her at a reception or something, I would go over and have a discussion with her. But as I say, I actually haven't had a discussion with her during the entire time she was doing her report.
Might I ask when you first approached her to be your Chief of Staff?
I've been on the lookout for a Chief of Staff for a little while now. I'm very clear what I wanted in that. And obviously, Sue will set out that, but nothing improper at all. I've been on the lookout for a Chief of Staff. I'm really pleased that people of her calibre are interested in that.
So when did you approach, can I ask when you approached Sue?
Look,
if I may call her, Sue?
I've been looking for a Chief of Staff for a number of weeks now.
I think October 2022, Sam White left you, if I've got that correct.
That's when I lost, when Sam White moved on. At that stage, the first task I had for myself was being clear in my own mind what I wanted from a Chief of Staff, because I was beginning to think about how to deliver.
So I will try again, and obviously you don't have to answer, but when did you first contact Sue Gray about the possibility of becoming your Chief of Staff?
Well, Nick, that's going to be laid out by Sue. She's got to do that as part of her leaving procedure. But there's nothing improper at all.
But you can't tell me that.
Nick, nothing improper at all.
No, but you can't tell me when you first approached her.
I've been looking for a Chief of Staff for a little while now, but Sue will lay that out.
Why won't you tell me, Sir Keir?
There's nothing improper at all.
No. But just interested why you won't tell me when you first made contact with her.
I'm not going to go through lock, stock and barrel, but there's nothing improper. It's not unusual.
But if it's not improper, I'm sorry to interrupt. If it's not improper, why won't you say, it was a month ago, Nick, or it was 6 weeks ago, Nick, or it was on New Year's Day?
It was. I've been looking for some time, and there's nothing improper in the slightest.
But one person who won't be allowed back in is Jeremy Corbyn.
Yep.
He can't learn from his experience in the way that Rupert Huck has learnt from hers?
He won't stand as a Labour candidate at the next election. I took the decision after his response to the Equality and Human Rights Commission that his failure to even really properly acknowledge the findings and what he said in the response afterwards was totally incompatible with the change that I was bringing about in the Labour Party. We have changed the Labour Party, Nick. We needed to change the Labour Party after the dreadful defeat in 2019, and we're not going back.
So to clarify, if you acknowledge some of your transgression and try and put it right, as Rupert Huck did, that is some of the battle.
Yes, so
Okay.
it depends. I mean, I'm not going to pretend what Rupa said was acceptable in any way, but she has accepted that. She has been very clear that she accepts that. And then there is a difficult decision, Nick, in every case, which is it proportionate to sort of say, well, I'm afraid you're never getting the whip back, or when someone's gone through what she's gone through, well, you can. But with Jeremy Corbyn, it's a different matter. He will not stand as a Labour candidate at the next election. We have changed the Labour Party and we're not going back. The idea that Boris Johnson is nominating his dad for a knighthood, you only need to say it to realise just how ridiculous it is. It's classic of a man who... like Johnson. I mean, I think the public would just think this is absolutely outrageous. Nothing personal against Stanley, but the idea of an ex-Prime Minister bestowing honours on his dad for services to what? It's
my listeners have had some suggestions, but I'll leave those on there. One last try. Did you make contact with Sue Gray about joining you as Chief of Staff this year or last year?
Nick, it was recent. It was after I'd lost, or we moved on from my last Chief of Staff,
October.
and after I've also had a period of working through in my own mind what I wanted from a Chief of Staff.
You're not going to tell me when?
Nick, that'll all be later, but there's absolutely nothing improper about this whatsoever.